Good morning again. Welcome to a new class. So I am shifting in this class to the 1990s. I'm picking up a certain movie, and I will give you the link to the movie, and I'm sure you can watch it. The movie is called Hum Aapke Hain Kaun. I'm sure you are quite familiar with this film. So I'm shifting to the 90s for a certain reason. So after alternate cinema, I want to again come back to an era where you will find an antithesis to alternate cinema, and that's the main point why do I bring it here. It's an antithesis to what you have been hearing in alternate cinema. Alternate cinema was all about independence, was about alternate script, alternate star cast, alternate no song and dance. It was about sensitive issues, social issues. Hum Aapke Hain Kaun gives you another worldview. Hum Aapke Hain Kaun gives you another way at looking at how cinema was made during the 90s, how there is a different realm of cinema which created and produced a different kind of worldview and meaning making. So this meaning making process in this Hum Aapke Hain Kaun kind of a film, if you realize, if you have watched it and if you have watched cinema of this kind, you will realize the worldview is completely different from what we have come to consider in cinema of alternate kind, in the art house cinema or Indian cinema. Now let us look at the film in depth, and let us realize let us try to understand what are we looking at in this cinema. What is the main purpose of this cinema? As you can see from the slide, it's called the perfect unifier, the entertainment for every Indian. Why do I call it? Why is it called an unifier? Because it's a coming together. It's a coming together of the great Indian family. Within the family, there is this concept of the entertainment. Its audacity lies in the fact that it does not have a story. It does not have a plot actually. So it completely does away with this idea of the plot and all the kind of masala ingredient that has been associated with other commercial cinema of sex and violence. So this is different from the kind of commercial cinema of the 70s and 80s that you have seen. There is no violence in this film. There is no overt sexuality in this film. And it does away with the plot. So you don't have the hero grows up and he fights the villain and he romances a girl and then the cinema comes to an end. You don't have that kind of a plot. You don't have this normative Indian Bollywood plot in this film. What is this film? This is a family affair. It's non-stop laughter. Food plays a very important role. I'll come to that. Songs and games which you come to associate with any joint Hindu family, and it functions within the framework of romance. So there is a romance underneath this whole idea of the family coming together and singing and dancing and playing games and things which you associate with such family. But this premise does not hold the ground for a successful Hindi film, because we have seen Hindi film is not about happiness and games and songs. Hindi film is about masala. Hindi film is of course about romance, and which is there in Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, but it does not have all the other ingredients of the normative Hindi film. So Suraj Barjatia, the director, makes intervention in Indian cinema, makes an intervention in popular cinema. He breaks the trend in Hindi cinema that you see around Hum Aapke Hain Kaun. So even at the time Hum Aapke Hain Kaun was being made, there were other cinema that were being made which were following that trend of popular Hindi cinema, yet Barjatya makes an important intervention here. He changes the script. And this is a significant change in the script, so much so that you are not sure of its success, because the audience goes into a movie theater expecting violence, expecting fighting, expecting the trump of good of evil. So there is a plot, there is a masala plot. Barjatya does away with all of this plot, and it reduces the level in the narrative, and he does not provide us breathing space or not the time to switch off from this constant entertainment that he throws at us through the lens of this family. You cannot look elsewhere, you have to look at this family, the largest, the access that is shown on screen. So Barjatya creates an alternate kind of a cinema, but which is in the milieu of the Hindi cinema, that it has romance as its main premise, yet it does not go out of the Indian household. It does not go out, it does not step out of the house. The film almost assumes then an utopia dimension, and as Ashish Nandi says, a realized utopia can be another name for terror. There is so much utopia in this film. There is so much utopian ambition of love, of songs, of food. You'll come to see as I go on explaining. So it categorically, Suraj Barjatya categorically rejects the storyline of the Hindi film. So Hum Aapke Hain Kaun would as would be explained, it gives up with the storyline, but it comes to represent what we would normally use the term from Freud called a fetishized representation. How fetishized you will look at it. So it's a representation, it's a fetishized representation of the family and all the surrounding stuff around it. The fetishized representation focuses then, or rather lingers, luxuriates on the materiality of the object, which is a substitute for desire. So what am I saying is that this fetishized representation is achieved through the camera, and how the camera lingers on objects of desire. It lingers and luxuriates. It has the luxury to keep focusing. It has the time to focus on things which are shown as fetishized representation, more often than not on the body, on the faces of the performers, on food, and on all the other material objects that is shown in the film. So the concept of a fetishized representation is actually what delivers the idea of Hum Aapke Hain Kaun. This circuit of rhetoric is amplified in the repetition of the shots. So the camera is very important in this representation. It's slow, it's languorous and oddly momentous, which provides a visual clue as to what lies in store for us in the film, as the story is sidelined for an endless. So this, as the story proceeds, you will realize that there is no story. As the story of the film proceeds, you will realize that the story is nothing but an euphoric expression of celebration, and where the camera slowly and languidly, in a luxuriating way, keeps focusing on those celebration, the celebration of the let's say the birth in the family, the celebration of, let's say, the most important moment in the family, that is marriage, and it keeps on lingering on those objectified representations, fetishized representations of those moments. You'll realize that there is no script then, that the moments, the fetishized representation of moments is itself the story. The narrative then takes a turn. There is only celebration, and the celebration, the momentous celebrations in the family, one after another in the story, is actually nothing but this fetishized representation. So this rhetoric of representation is captured by the camera in slow, languorous movement, repetitive movement of the shot, the same thing over and over again, the same shots of smile, the laughter, the songs, the happiness, and there seems to be nothing wrong in the family. So there is no story. One of the most important fetishized image in the whole film is food, and food actually lends itself to such a representation. That's true, but food is fetishized, say more often than not in the concept of food porn. So you will see in travel documentaries or those kind of ideas that you will see food being fetishized, but in a movie, food being fetishized is something very unheard of. So the food is foregrounded. There is a lot of kachoris and a lot of other such food stuff that is being constantly forwarded in the story, and the food is the epitome of the happiness. So everything, any happiness happens, and there is food that comes out. In fact, so much so that in this script you will find a song on food. So there is a classic song in the film which talks about food constantly. It talks about chocolates and ice creams and toffees, and such is the importance of food in this film. So a lot of humor in the film is food centered, involving you see in one of the beginning shots of the film, the bride's father is trying to cook samosas or kachoris, something of that sort, and there is a lot of laughter and joke going around about his cooking skills and how he cooks, and food is the center around which the plot is played out. Whatever the storyline is plays out around the concept of food, and not much of other aspects of the life. In reality, then what happens is food comes to epitomize that significant sign value of what Barjatya was trying to show, of wealth, of family, of tradition. So food is a symbol of well-to-doness, of richness, of wealthiness, of families, of traditions. So food and all of this fetishized representation of happiness and wealth, and these are all objects that are to be consumed along with the food. So the food is not literally food, but is a representation of all of these other symbolic values, and which are to be consumed by the audience. So wealth in this film, which is one of the factors, one of the important elements to be consumed by the audience, wealth that is shown on the screen, it is preordained in the film. What do I mean by preordained? It means wealth is there everywhere. There is no struggle for wealth. It's a very well-to-do family. Even the bride's father, who is not as well-to-do as the groom's family, yet you see not a hint of struggle for wealth. Wealth is preordained. It has come from above. It has come from the previous generations. It is something that is not to be struggled for. It is something that is not to be talked about. It is something that is not to be mentioned. It is there. There is a lot of wealth. There is a lot of, consequently, a lot of happiness, because wealth creates that happiness that you show in that you see in the film. And as wealth is preordained, so is happiness is preordained. There is a lot of love happening in the family. There is a lot of bonhomie. There is a lot of camaraderie. There is a lot of brotherly and sisterly love. Everybody looks out for the other. Everybody tries to take the other on. They all are a unified one. They are all happy in a relationship, a brotherly sisterly relationship. So wealth is preordained, happiness is preordained, love is preordained. So there is nothing wrong in the storyline, apart from the fact that there is no storyline. There is everything preordained. So everything is what I might consider as everything is Siddha Sada. There is no plot, there is no twist, there is no villain in the text. There is love, there is bonhomie, there is friendliness, there is wealth, there is food, there is laughter, there is humor, and after all there is a big family. So nothing is twisted in it. There is no villain. So everything is Siddha Sada. So there is no dissent within the family. Nobody is a dissenting member. So whatever you see is an after effect of the happiness that is out there in the family. There is nobody who dissents against this preordained nature of love and wealth. There is nobody in the family who raises a hand and rebels. So happiness is almost looks like is the essential condition of Hum Aapke Hain Kaun life. Happiness and wealth, these are the preconditions that Suraj Barjatia has created. A continuous 3-hour frolic of love and fun and wealth. Economically, this is a film that is obviously, as I might consider, with the liberalization. Remember, this is a film which comes after post-liberation in the 1994-95. So this is in tune with the liberalization of our times that has happening during that time, while it is again grounded in the homogenized upper caste Hindu milieu that you would come to consider. So you are not at all given a hint of any heterogeneity in the film. Everything is homogenized. You don't see different class or different caste or as I said, no struggle, no economic struggle. So this is almost like a liberalization after effect. You see everything homogenized, everything upper class. So there is only one class in the film. There is an upper caste. There is a constant reference to religion in the film, a constant reference to Brahminism in the film. So there is this kind of a homogenized representation of a certain class in the film, which is again preordained. So this so Suraj Barjatia, the director, creates this family, creates this frolic of wealth and laughter and family without the rebel, without the trouble, without the dissent, and he creates a truly liberalization story of a certain homogenized section of the Indian society, which you cannot locate in the Indian milieu. You cannot locate this family's geography. It's very difficult because they contribute to that pan-Indian representation of upper caste Indian Hindu family.